Friends, welcome. This is a summary of the two covenant teachings we've had, or discussions. I wanted to do this so that you could learn what is the gospel of grace, because it ties into the new covenant. And so by doing that, what that helps you to do, I believe, is when a preacher, an organization, or a online teacher starts talking about God's grace, or the works that you must do, or the way your salvation can be threatened, you can then spot the difference. Is the focus on the message that on a new covenant message, or the old covenant, or is it a bit of both, a bit of a mixed covenant? Because when you start mixing, you start clashing ideas and thoughts and salvation. Can you spot the differences between one and the other? Yes, you can. When we look at the old covenant, again, just in summary, what do we see? We see an oath between Jehovah and the nation of Israel. Deuteronomy chapter 28 verse 2, if you obey. And then if you obey, if you do this and the other, right? If you obey the 613 laws, you'll be blessed. But then in the same chapter, in Deuteronomy 28:15, if you disobey, and read through all the disobedient, if you're a disobedient person as a nation and as individuals, read through chapter 28 to the end. And then you'll see what type of law, what type of curses, what type of punishment would be meted out to this nation if they disobeyed. And so that's one thing. When I was given to the Israelites, the mediator was Moses. The law was 613. They had a priesthood, the Levitical priesthood. The temple, it was a physical place where the Ark of the Covenant was, and the most holy, and that represented the presence of God. They had the sacrifices. They repeated animal sacrifices for the atonement of sins. Under the new covenant, the oath that is given, it's a deal or a covenant between God and Jesus. God swears by himself and gives us a spiritual guarantee in 2 Corinthians 1:22. We know that the mediator of the new covenant is Jesus. It's the law. There's not 613 laws. This is not the new covenant at all. The Father hasn't done that. What he's done is given us a new heart. So it's written now on the heart. What is written on the heart? That is his love. He pours his love onto or into our hearts. Romans 5:9 says so. And it's written, really, it's summarized by 2 points: love and belief. That is the new covenant in a nutshell. We know that the temple is you. You as a believer are the temple. In 1 Corinthians, Paul highlights that. And we have the indwelling spirit. So you are the living temple. You are a walking, mobile temple now, which is fantastic. And with the indwelling spirit, we have the presence of God with us, within us. And Christ is in us as well. And of course, Jesus is our high priest. And therefore, us as believers, all believers, is the royal priesthood. That's the standouts of the two. One is conditional. The old covenant was conditional based on, as we read if you read Deuteronomy 28, about what you do. If you do, right? Based on conditions. If you do, if you listen, if you obey, if you look, if you follow, if you pay attention, if you obey, if you disobey, right? When they asked the Israelites or the Jews, when they asked Jesus, what is the greatest command? He said, you must do this. And you must love God, right? It's a commands you must do. And love your neighbor as yourself. But that's not the new covenant. And so that's not the way we work in the new covenant. The new covenant is you are blessed because of Jesus. Because Jesus obeyed. Our salvation is not based on our works at all. Our salvation is eternal and secure because of Jesus. And it's Jesus who saves us, and it's Jesus who keeps us. Right? That's Ephesians 2:8 tells us that it's not about our works at all. So we're not about a do. That is the old covenant mentality. The new covenant is saying this. So when you hear a mixed gospel, you'll always hear this, you got to do. You know, you've got to be at these meetings. You've got to go out and do this. You've got to do that. You've got to do the other. You got to keep this, keep that. If you sin or whatever, you could lose your salvation. You got to forgive everybody. That's under the old. Under the new, it's you are forgiven. So therefore, you can forgive because you are already forgiven. It's the old says if you don't forgive, God won't forgive you. That's in the prayer, but that's in the old, right? After Christ, under the new covenant, it's different. It is what Jesus has already done. So when you hear a new covenant preacher preach, he should be saying, or she should be talking about, that it is done. That's what Jesus said. It is done. It is finished. What is finished? It is done. What? You are totally forgiven. Colossians 2:13. You are healed. 1 Peter 2:24. You are blessed with all spiritual blessings, not some, as some want to teach. Ephesians 1:3. You are the righteousness of God today when you believe. 2 Corinthians 5:21. It's not in the future. This is all in the new covenant. You are holy. Hebrews 10:10. You are mighty as a person because of who you are. Your identity is really important. Ephesians 1:19. You're accepted and you are loved. Romans 15:7, and of course Romans 8:39, a well-known verse. Your identity is so important in all this. You are not how do you know, right? Like, what's the test? A simple test, which I think many Christians struggle with, is what the new covenant does, and the result of being saved is the way people look at themselves, the way they identify themselves. When I first became a Jehovah's Witness, an old-time brother there said to me, I'm a dirty, rotten, no good slave of God, or something like that. And I was thinking, why talk to yourself like that? Why is he saying that? I didn't understand. I thought, why would you refer yourself as that? Is that humility? This is what I thought. Maybe he's a really humble guy. I don't know. No, that's not humility at all. That's false humility, because we've been told we are dirty, rotten sinners, dirty, rotten slaves, good for nothing slaves. This is what we should be doing, But a new covenant person, how do they see themselves? Do they see themselves as a son and child of God, as a servant or a friend? We've mentioned this before in my previous video. How do you view yourself is really important. The apostles called the believers not sinners. None of them ever called the believers sinners. You dirty, rotten sinners. You no good for nothing slaves. You good for nothing slaves. No. He called them saints, holy ones, right? Set apart ones, saints. Go ahead, read all the texts you like. And you'll see Paul addressing all the believers as saints. Do you see yourself as a saint? Now, doesn't that elevate you immediately when you do that? Yes, because that's under the new covenant, and that's who we are as children of God. We are saints. When we look at our Father in heavens, see, are we talking about someone in the old covenant of Israel with all the curses that will come if you disobey? No. That's a different God. Jehovah is a different God. And that's okay. You don't have to agree with me. That's how I see it. Right? Jehovah had blessings and curses even worse than those that was meted out to Israel. But the Father doesn't do that. He's already forgiven us. As soon as we accepted Jesus, that is the will of the Father. Some people point to Matthew 7:21-23 and say, well, what is the will of God? Those who do the will of God. Well, what is the will of God? Have a look at John chapter 6, verses 40, and you will see what the will of God is. You see, the reason why Jesus says, I never knew you, is because they were never saved. Jesus says about those who are saved, I know my sheep. So these ones that Jesus is talking about in Matthew 7 are unbelievers, people who have yet to put belief in Christ. And so when Jesus refers to doing the will of my Father, what is the Father's will? What does he say when he speaks while Jesus is on planet Earth? Listen to him. Listen to him. This is my Son, my beloved. Listen to him. Okay. That's what the Father wants us to do. So what does Jesus say is the Father's will? John chapter 6 verse. You will see that the will of the Father and the work of the Father are the same thing, and that is to believe in his Son. So, if we can't do that, maybe we're not listening to the Father and the Son then, because one works with the other. Jesus said, if you listen to him, you've listened to the Father. Okay, I accept Jesus at his word. So, why don't you? Right? So, instead of looking at as God as your judge, he can be your judge. If you're an unbeliever, you refuse to believe in his Son, sure, you put yourself under judgment. But as soon as you accept his Son, you don't. You become adopted. You become adopted into the family of God. So therefore, he becomes your Father, as a loving Father, and you are then his beloved child. So this is something we need to grasp about the old and the new covenants. They are separate. Let's not clash. Let's not mix them. If you hear people mixing them up in their messages, okay, so the old covenant was all about, I will do this, I will do that, I will obey, I will do this, and it's based on your words. This is why Jesus said, don't make any oaths. And then the whole nation of Israel made an oath. But Jesus says, don't make oaths, right? And so there's the catch for you. You don't need to make an oath. The new covenant says, when we look at it closely, God says, by my words, I will make this thing happen, right? Not by your faithfulness, but by mine. And so we can trust God at his word all the time. Hebrews 8-12 is very important. And of course, Exodus 19-8 regarding words. And of course, the Sermon on the Mount where Jesus says, don't make any oaths. Guys, I hope that's been a little, this is just a little summary of this discussion that we've had in the past few weeks on the covenants. So hopefully you can detect there is a clash of covenants at the moment. There is a mixing of covenants within Christianity, and it confuses everybody. And you can see the rhetoric online when people say, well, you can't lose your salvation like I do, versus people who just say, no, you got to be careful. That's not good. I'll tell you why. Look at Matthew 7:21-23. Not understanding, of course, and it's not people's fault. We've been sort of led to this place. We should keep the old with the old, look at it, admire it, and say, I don't want that. I want the new, and I want to be part of a community that understands that. Because when you're part of a community that doesn't understand that, you're going to have clash. You're going to keep clashing with the thoughts and ideas from one to the other. Have a great day, guys. I hope it's cleared up some things for you regarding the gospel of grace. It is an amazing thing to behold when you behold it for its true worth. It is so beautiful. Have a great day, and we'll talk again soon. See you later.